We get more fish deaths reported in spring than any other time of year. Not summer, when the water's warm and everyone's feeding heavily. Not winter, when the fish are nearly dormant and most people have stopped feeding entirely. Spring, the season that looks and feels like a fresh start. And almost every time, the cause is the same. The pond keeper did everything right by instinct, saw the fish coming up, got excited, started feeding maybe, cleaned the filter while they're at it, and triggered exactly the conditions that can kill fish. So today I want to walk through what's actually happening in your pond during those first warm weeks of the year. Why the biology is working against you, even in an established pond, and what you should actually be doing instead. There's some good science behind this, and as always, everything's linked in the description below. Let's get into it. The term new pond syndrome gets used in two slightly different ways, so let's be precise about what we mean. In the strict sense, new pond syndrome describes what happens when fish are added to a pond before the biological filter has established, before the bacteria and archaea that convert ammonia into less harmful compounds have had time to colonize the filter media and multiply to meaningful numbers. Ammonia builds up, fish show signs of stress, and in serious cases, fish begin to die. That process, the conversion of ammonia through nitrite and eventually to nitrate, is called the nitrogen cycle. It's the cornerstone of water quality in any fish keeping system, and in a brand new pond, it takes time to get going. Generally, 6 to 8 weeks for a filter to be reliably functional. But the version of new pond syndrome I want to focus on today is the one that catches experienced keepers off guard, the spring version, because an established pond in the first weeks of spring can behave almost identically to a new pond. The filter wakes up slowly. Organic waste from the winter starts to break down rapidly, and the fish are coming into conditions that can be genuinely hazardous. Understanding why that happens requires understanding a bit about what your filter is actually doing and what winter does to it. The biological filter in your pond works by providing surface area, sponge, ceramic rings, matting, and whatever media you're using on which colonies of microorganisms establish themselves. These organisms oxidize ammonia, first converting it to nitrite and then converting nitrite to the relatively harmless product nitrate. Without them, ammonia accumulates and fish die. What most fish keeping resources teach us is that it is done by two main groups of bacteria: Nitrosomonas for the ammonia step and Nitrobacter or Nitrospira for nitrite. That picture is accurate enough to be useful, but it's also significantly incomplete. And we'll go much deeper into the actual biology in the next video in this series. But for now, what matters practically is that the organisms doing the work are temperature sensitive. The optimum temperature for nitrification is roughly 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. As temperatures drop, that rate drops with it. A decrease of 10 degrees cuts nitrification activity roughly by half. Below 10 degrees, activity is very low. Below 4 degrees, it's essentially negligible. Your filter doesn't switch off in winter, but it's running at a fraction of its summer capacity. Now, here's the critical point about spring. When temperatures start rising, let's say from 6 degrees to 12 degrees, decomposition of organic matter accelerates significantly. All the leaves, fish waste and uneaten food that accumulate on the bottom of your pond over winter start to break down rapidly, releasing ammonia. But your filter bacteria, or archaea, as the research increasingly suggests, are still warming up. They haven't had time to multiply back to their summer numbers yet. You have a surge of ammonia production meeting a filter that's not yet fully equipped to handle it. This lag between organic decomposition and nitrification recovery in biological filtration systems. Zhu and Chen, writing in the Journal of Aquaculture Engineering in 2001, documented the lag between organic decomposition and nitrification recovery in biological filtration systems. The filter capacity doesn't bounce back immediately when temperatures rise. It recovers gradually as the microbial community re-establish. That lag window is when spring losses happen. There's a second factor in spring that compounds the ammonia risk, and it's one even experienced keepers often don't think about: pH. Ammonia exists in water in two forms. The ionized form ammonium, NH4+, is relatively harmless to fish at typical pond concentrations. The un-ionized form, NH3, is acutely toxic and can cause gill damage, neurological effects, and death at concentrations well below 0.1 milligrams per litre. The ratio between these two forms is determined by pH and temperature. The higher the pH, the greater the proportion of ammonia that exists in its toxic un-ionized form. This relationship was characterized in detail by Emerson and colleagues in a foundational paper published in the Journal of Fisheries Research Board of Canada in 1975. It's old work, but the chemistry hasn't changed. What it tells us is that a given ammonia reading is far more dangerous in alkaline water than it is neutral or slightly acidic water. In spring, pond pH often rises sharply in the afternoons. As sunlight hours lengthen and algae and aquatic plants begin photosynthesizing actively, they pull carbon dioxide out of the water. Less CO2 means less carbonic acid, which means the buffering capacity of water is reduced and pH climbs. It's not unusual to see a pond hit a pH of 8.5 or even higher on a sunny spring afternoon in a productive pond. At pH 8.5, a total ammonia reading that would have been marginal at pH 7.5 becomes genuinely dangerous. Most people do their water testing in the morning when pH has dropped back overnight, and they miss the dangerous afternoon spike entirely. So you have ammonia being produced faster than a recovering filter can handle, and pH conditions that make that ammonia maximally toxic. That combination is what kills fish in spring. The other classic spring symptom is green water. The pond that was clear all winter suddenly turns pea soup green, seemingly overnight. Planktonic algae, millions of microscopic, single-celled algae suspended in the water column, bloom when two things come together: nutrients and light. In winter, nutrients accumulate in the pond from decomposing organic matter. Daylight hours are short and light intensity is low, so algae can't get going. In spring, the days lengthen and light intensity increases, and suddenly there's plenty of both energy and nutrients. The algae bloom. The green water itself isn't directly harmful to fish in most cases. What it tells you is that there is an excess of nutrients in the water, which is useful information. If you're seeing green water alongside signs of fish showing stress, hanging at the surface, clamped fins, reduced appetite, the water chemistry needs testing immediately, because the nutrients driving the algae bloom may also be driving an ammonia spike. The standard device, UV sterilizer, will clear the green water visually by killing suspended algae, but it doesn't address the underlying nutrient problem. The algae you've killed sinks to the bottom and starts to decompose, which adds to the ammonia load. If you're going to use UV in spring, make sure you're also doing water changes and testing that address the root cause. The most sustainable solution in your average pond is higher plant coverage. Marginals and submerged plants competing with the algae for nutrients, and restrained feeding early in the season to limit the nutrient load in the first place. There's one more spring mistake I want to address specifically because it's very common and the consequences can be severe. The pond comes out of winter looking murky. There's sludge in the bottom, the filter media has accumulated debris over the cold months. The whole system looks like it needs a clean out. So the keeper opens up the filter, rinses all their media under the tap, and gives the pond a good scrub. Puts it back together, clean pond, fresh start. The problem is that the filter media, however dirty it looks, contains the entire established microbial bacteria that your pond relies on. The biological colonies on the sponge or those ceramic rings took months to build. Rinsing the media under cold tap water, which contains chlorine or chloramine, will kill a significant proportion of those organisms. In one cleaning session, you've set your biological filter back to something close to a new pond state at exactly the moment the fish are becoming active and producing more waste. If you need to clean your filter media, and sometimes you do because clogged media reduces flow and therefore reduces efficiency, always rinse it in a bucket of pond water, not tap water. Never clean all your media at once. Do one section at a time, weeks apart. So there's always a large established colony intact to maintain nitrification while the clean section recovers. And if you've already done a full filter clean this spring and your fish are now showing signs of stress, get your water tested immediately. Water change and some patience may be what you need. So let's make it practical. Here's how to bring your pond out of winter without killing your fish. First, test the water before you do anything else. Before you feed, before you clean, before you add new fish. Get a baseline ammonia, nitrite, and pH reading. If you only have one bit of equipment for your pond, I would always recommend a good test kit. Personally, I love NT Labs test kits. I think they're excellent and give you a wide range of tests that last a very long time. Ammonia and nitrite should both be 0 in an established pond. If they're not, you have a problem and that needs addressing before anything else. Second, don't start feeding until the water is consistently above 10 degrees, measured in the morning and stable there. Not a warm afternoon, not a single day, consistently above 10 for several days before the sun has had a chance to warm the surface. When you do start, use wheat germ-based food and start with tiny amounts. The gut microbiome needs time to recover just as your filter does. Third, leave your filter alone. Resist the spring cleaning impulse. If the filter is flowing well and ammonia and nitrite are 0, the filter is working. Don't fix what isn't broken. If you must clean one section at a time in pond water, weeks apart. Fourth, do a partial water change in early spring. around 20 to 25%, just to dilute any ammonia that's accumulated from winter decomposition. This is different from doing a large disruptive clean. A modest water change removes built-up nutrients and gives the recovering filter a more manageable starting load. But just be sure to treat your fresh water for chlorine as it's going in. Fifth and finally, watch the fish, but interpret what you see correctly. Fish coming to the surface on a warm afternoon doesn't necessarily mean they're in distress. It can just be a response to warming surface water. Look for real signs of stress: clamped fins, flashing against surfaces, labored breathing, loss of appetite when the temperature is genuinely warm enough to feed. These are all signs that something is wrong. To bring it all together, spring is the most dangerous season for pond fish because of the mismatch in timing. Organic matter accumulated over winter begins decomposing rapidly as temperatures rise, producing ammonia, but the biological filtration, which was running at a reduced capacity all winter, doesn't recover instantly. There's a lag window, and ammonia production outpaces the filter's ability to process it. That lag is made worse by spring pH dynamics. As algae and plants photosynthesize on longer days, pH can spike sharply in the afternoon. At elevated pH, ammonia is significantly more toxic. A reading that's borderline at pH 7.5 can be lethal at pH 8.5. The mistakes that turn this difficult season into a fatal one is feeding too early before the filter has recovered, cleaning the filter too aggressively and destroying the microbial bacteria, and not testing the water before making decisions. Test before you feed. Feed with wheat germ above 10 degrees, clean only one filter section at a time in pond water, and do a modest water change in the early spring to reduce the nutrient load. And watch the fish with an informed eye. In the next video, we're going to go much deeper into the nitrogen cycle itself, looking at the organisms actually doing the work, including some discoveries from the last decade that have completely changed how microbiologists understand biological filtration. It's been really genuinely fascinating to research, and it has some practical implications for how we think about filter media and cycling. As I said at the top of the video, links to everything I've mentioned today are in the description below, including some other references that didn't make it into this final cut. If you've got any questions, then drop us a message in the comments below, or come and find us. We're based in London, NW7 1AS, Finchley Nurseries, and we'd really love to meet you. We love having conversations with everyone about their ponds and giving advice. But for now, that's all from me, and I hope you'll join me again next time for this Pond Life.